My wife secretly had an affair with her boss, stole $250, $0 from our joint account to support his divorce, and now she's claiming I'm the one abusing her in the divorce court. How did it all go so wrong? Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. It's the kind of story you hear about and think, that only happens in movies, but here I am, living it. It all started with small signs, little things that didn't add up: her phone ringing at odd hours, her suddenly being overly secretive about her texts, the way she'd get defensive when I asked who she was talking to. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself she was stressed or had friends she was catching up with. But then the signs grew more obvious. One night, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I expected her to be working late, as usual. But instead, I found her sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, face flushed. She looked nervous as hell when I walked in. I noticed something was off immediately. Her eyes darted to her phone screen, then back to me too quickly. That's when I saw the text message thread pop up, something about a special night and plans that didn't include me. My stomach sank. I started paying more attention. She was acting different, more distant, more irritable, snapping at me over small things. I also noticed the bank statements. She was spending more money than usual, but she'd always claimed she was saving for a big trip or some new wardrobe. But then I saw the withdrawals: $250, zero gone from our joint account. That's $250,000. I froze. That kind of money doesn't just disappear. I knew something was seriously wrong. The biggest shock came when I decided to check her phone history. I found texts with her boss, Mark, from her work email account that she'd been trying to hide. They were talking about meetings, secret dinners, and even plans to meet after hours. I couldn't believe it. She'd been cheating on me. With her boss for months, probably longer. It was like a punch to the gut. How could she do this to me, to us? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. The moment I confronted her, she spun a web of lies. She said I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of things that weren't true. She claimed she was just working late, that Mark was just a colleague, and that I was overreacting. But I had the evidence. The texts, the bank statements. I showed her everything. Her face twisted into this bitchy smirk as she told me I was crazy, that I was making it all up, that I was abusive because I didn't trust her. That hurt more than anything, her turning it around and trying to make me feel like I was the problem. I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare. The shock was overwhelming. I'd loved her for years, built a life with her, and now I was staring at the woman I thought I knew, realizing she'd been lying and cheating right under my nose. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything in my head: the secret meetings, the stolen money, her cold lies. I felt a mix of sadness, anger, and helplessness. How did it all go so wrong? I thought I knew her, but I was just fooling myself. After I gathered all the evidence, I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to confront her again, this time with everything laid out on the table. I called her into the bedroom, my hands trembling slightly. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her, which only made my blood boil more. I told her I knew about her affair with Mark, about the stolen money, everything. Her reaction was pure bitchy defiance. She rolled her eyes, scoffed, and told me I was crazy again. She started spinning stories, trying to deny it all, claiming she never cheated, that I was paranoid, that I was just jealous and insecure. She said she'd never do anything to hurt me and that I was just accusing her because I didn't trust her. That's when she threw in the classic line: "You're abusive. You're controlling. You don't even know what you're talking about." Her voice was dripping with contempt, like she thought she was the victim here. Not me. That stung more than I can say. I sat there, listening to her spin her lies, feeling this intense mix of rage and heartbreak. It was like I'd been hit over and over again. How could someone I loved, someone I built a life with, be capable of this? I thought about all the plans we'd made, the future I'd envisioned, and how she'd just thrown it all away for some affair and money. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal. The emotional toll hit me hard. I started questioning everything. Was I blind? Was I just stupid for not seeing it sooner? Was I just a fool to believe she loved me? The pain was sharp. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, anything, to make her see how much she'd hurt me. But I also knew I had to think about what came next. I had to decide whether I could forgive her, or if I should just cut my losses and walk away. That night I stayed up late, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd learned. I kept thinking about the money, how she'd stolen $250,000 to support her affair with Mark, who was probably just using her as much as she was using him. The betrayal was so deep, I didn't even know who she really was anymore. Was this just a one-time thing? Or had she been planning this for months? I felt like I was losing my mind, and I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. All I knew was that my life had been turned upside down, and I was left standing in the wreckage, trying to pick up the pieces. The next few days were a blur of anger, disbelief, and cold calculation. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I kept thinking about was how she had lied to me so effortlessly, how she'd stolen from us, and how she'd turned herself into this cold, bitchy version of the woman I thought I knew. I realized I couldn't just confront her again and hope for an apology or some kind of remorse. I needed to act, and fast. First thing I did was contact a lawyer specializing in divorce and financial fraud. I needed to understand my options, especially with the money missing and her trying to paint me as an abuser in court. The lawyer told me that the evidence I had, her texts, bank statements, and her behavior, would be enough to build a solid case. But more importantly, I had to get control of the finances. I decided to hire a private investigator. I needed to find out if she'd been planning this for months, if she'd hidden more money, or if she was making moves to cut me out entirely. Meanwhile, she continued to act like nothing was wrong. She'd throw tantrums, accuse me of being paranoid, and insist she was the victim. She'd say I was abusive, that I was controlling her, that I was just jealous because I didn't trust her. Her words were venomous. I could see her trying to manipulate the situation, to turn everyone against me. She even started claiming I was physically abusive, an outright lie. I knew she was trying to make herself look innocent, but I refused to let her get away with it. I started documenting everything: the texts, her erratic behavior, her financial moves. I kept a detailed journal of her lies and her manipulations. I also kept a close eye on the bank accounts, watching for any further withdrawals or suspicious activity. The more I dug, the more I realized she'd been planning this for a while. She'd set up secret accounts, hide some of the money, and probably had an escape plan if things went south. I felt like I was in a game I didn't want to play, but I had no choice. One night, I caught her sneaking around the house, trying to delete some files from her laptop. I confronted her then and there. She yelled at me, called me paranoid, and accused me of invading her privacy, again trying to paint herself as the victim. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew she was hiding something. I told her I was done playing her games, that I was going to take control of our finances and get to the bottom of her lies. Her bitchy smirk faded for a moment, replaced by a flicker of panic. I also made a plan to confront her boss, Mark. I wanted to know exactly how deep this affair went and whether he'd been involved financially. I knew it was risky, but I had to get the truth. I wasn't going to sit around and let her ruin everything we built. The betrayal was too deep, and I was determined to get revenge, not just for the money, but for my dignity. I couldn't believe I'd trusted her all these years, only to find out she'd been screwing around with her boss and stealing from us. The anger was boiling over, but I knew I had to stay focused if I wanted to come out of this with some semblance of justice. Over the next few days, I intensified my efforts. I met with my lawyer, who laid out a clear strategy: freeze any remaining joint assets, start the divorce proceedings, and gather all evidence of her infidelity and financial misconduct. I also hired the private investigator, who confirmed my suspicions. She'd been funneling money into secret accounts, possibly to prepare for a quick escape. That made everything worse. She planned this for months, maybe longer. Meanwhile, her behavior grew more erratic. She'd lash out at me over nothing, accuse me of controlling her, and try to gaslight me into doubting my own sanity. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I started documenting every interaction, every lie, every emotional outburst. I wanted proof. not just for the divorce but also to make sure she couldn't spin her stories in court. One night, I caught her in the act of deleting files again. I was hiding in the hallway, pretending to be asleep when I saw her sneaking onto her laptop, her fingers flying over the keys. I confronted her immediately. She turned on me, furious, calling me paranoid and obsessive. That's when she dropped the bombshell. "You're abusive, you always have been. You're just jealous because I don't want to be married to a controlling bastard like you." Her voice was venomous, and her eyes looked like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. That moment was a turning point. I realized she was trying to rewrite history to make herself out to be the victim, but I knew the truth. I knew what she'd done. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her I was done playing her game. I told her I was taking control of everything, our finances, the divorce, and her lies. I made it clear I was done being manipulated. I also reached out to Mark, her boss. I needed to hear it straight from him. I called him, and at first he played dumb, denying everything. But I pressed him hard. Eventually, he admitted they'd been having an affair for months. He even hinted that she'd been pressuring him for financial help, money she'd secretly stolen to support her divorce from me. Hearing that made my blood boil. I realized she'd been planning this entire betrayal behind my back. I started to put together all the pieces. The stolen money, her affair, her lies, her manipulations. It was like a punch to the gut every time I uncovered another layer of her deception. But I also felt a strange clarity. I knew what I had to do. I was going to fight for everything I deserved: my money, my dignity, and my peace of mind. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I wasn't going to let her destroy what little was left of my life without a fight. The legal process moved quickly once I had all the evidence lined up. My lawyer filed for divorce, and I made sure to include claims for the stolen money, $250, along with the proof of her affair and her attempts to manipulate the court. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I knew she was trying to paint herself as the victim, claiming I was abusive and controlling, but I had enough concrete evidence to counter her lies. Still, I could see her bitchy smirk whenever she looked at me, like she thought she was winning. Meanwhile, her behavior became even more reckless. She started throwing tantrums, yelling at me over the smallest things, calling me crazy and abusive in front of the kids, trying to sway their opinion. It was disgusting. I kept my cool, recording everything, knowing that every word she said could be used against her in court. I also hired a counselor to document her emotional outbursts, just in case her lies about abuse gained any traction. One day, she set up a scene in the house, trying to guilt-trip me into backing down. She burst into tears, claiming I was trying to ruin her life, that she was just a victim of my controlling ways. She told the kids I was mean and abusive, trying to turn them against me. I felt a surge of rage. How dare she try to manipulate everyone? Like that, I calmly told her I had enough of her lies, that I was done playing her game. I told her she'd betrayed us all, and she'd have to face the consequences. The most shocking moment came when I found out she'd been trying to move the stolen money into offshore accounts. She was planning to disappear with it, leaving me with nothing. I alerted the authorities, and we froze those accounts. That was probably the worst part, knowing she'd planned to run away with everything she'd stolen, leaving me with nothing but a broken heart and a pile of lies. I felt numb but also resolved. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter what it took. Throughout all this, I stayed focused. I kept my emotions in check, even when she was throwing her bitchy fits, trying to manipulate the courts or lying about her abuse. I knew her game. I knew she was just trying to save herself, but I was determined to expose her for who she really was. The betrayal cut deep, but I also realized I was stronger than I thought. I was going to get through this, and I was going to come out the other side with some kind of justice. She might have broken our marriage, but she wasn't going to break me. Not without a fight. In the end, everything came crashing down faster than I expected. The court hearings were brutal, full of her bitchy smirks and outright lies. She kept claiming I was abusive, controlling, and mentally unstable, trying to paint herself as the victim of my supposed rage. But I had everything documented. The texts, the bank statements, the witness testimonies, even the recordings of her manipulative fits. When the judge saw all the evidence, her facade crumbled. The court ordered her to pay back the stolen $250, $0, and she was hit with charges of financial fraud and embezzlement. She tried one last time to manipulate her way out of it, crying and claiming I was abusive, that I'd been controlling her every move. But her lies didn't hold up anymore. The truth was out, and everyone saw her for what she was, a selfish, manipulative woman who had betrayed everything we built for her own greed and selfishness. The divorce was finalized a few months later. She was ordered to vacate the house, and I got full custody of the kids. I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with bitterness. I lost my marriage, yes, but I gained clarity. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. I also learned that revenge isn't always about getting even. Sometimes it's about protecting yourself and your future. Looking back, I wish I hadn't ignored the signs for so long. I wish I'd seen her true colors earlier. But I also realize that I'm stronger now. I've rebuilt my life, and I've become more cautious about who I trust. I don't regret standing up for myself, even if it meant going through hell first. I want anyone reading this to know, if you're in a similar situation, don't stay silent. Fight for your truth, protect your assets, and never let anyone manipulate you into believing you're the crazy one. Because the real crazy ones are the ones who lie, steal, and betray the people who love them. And you deserve better.